Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka Savage Tech Man. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Hello, everyone. This is Ed Ciucevich, and joining me once again for another episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast is Scott Schreiber. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks.
And we are talking about, we're just kind of getting caught up. Both of us have been in and out of the weather, so he's seen some films that I haven't, and I saw some films that, well, I don't know. I haven't seen many films. And we've been wanting to do episodes and talk about some of the films. So
even while sick, I've been very busy. I don't let it get in the way of my film watching. I want to be
a man with a purpose. I love
right.
it. I love that.
No, I'm very, this is the best time of year for films. We get all the Oscar contenders, and there's been some great movies in the last 3 weeks, and maybe some stinkers too. But
there's some dark ones here. But we're going to start off. We're going to take it back a little bit to a Current War, the director's cut.
Yeah. So Current War was. You did see this, correct?
Yeah, we saw it together.
See, this is how sick I've been.
And usually that's reverse. If anybody listens, our conversations are, I saw this movie, and you're like, Ed, you saw it with me, and so wow, I finally got you.
Right, tables are turned. I really love this. I think the Current War, and I think that it's not getting enough recognition. It's going to be forgotten. It's not going to get many nominations, but I loved it because it was kind of, it's the backstory of something I didn't know much about, and that was the race.
And it stars...
you got Michael Shannon, Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Holland, and...
stellar cast.
Oh, who plays Tesla? Oh, Nicholas Hoult.
Who's wonderful.
Yeah, they were all great performances.
All of them. All
and I love the cinematography in it because, it's about the race to electricity. It's who's going to be the first to power the world, essentially, And
basically, we know history has told us it's Tesla that got screwed. We should have went with Tesla, but the powers that be.
And I thought it was an interesting story. I really, they definitely make Westinghouse look like the hero, and Edison look like a villain, although they do humanize him.
Right.
But it definitely makes Westinghouse look like the philanthropist, which he was, and I think it's an honest portrayal of this. And yes, it makes Edison look like a money grubber,
right?
But he was a businessman, so
it's just business.
So all that I thought was interesting. The cinematography was great because there's a lot of just natural lighting because they're just their light, quote unquote light, hasn't been invented. So, like the cinematography was great. There's a lot of scenes that are pretty dark.
They captured the element of the time, for me. Now, a little disclaimer. I think I had been up late the night before. So kind of like in the middle of this movie, I think I dozed off a little bit, but that's no indication of what I thought of the film. I was just overly tired. Yeah. And, sometimes you get in those comfortable seats and,
Yeah. And then plus with that film though, too, is because it's so dimly lit.
Right.
I could see how you could get tired.
Yeah, and I kind of dozed for a minute, but I didn't miss anything that didn't, mess up the movie-going experience for me. But
I think all of the performances by those four main actors were fantastic. They'll get overlooked, unfortunately, but
and this was a director's cut.
Yeah,
which was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I believe Catherine Waterston played Mr. Westinghouse's wife, and she did a great job too.
Yeah, she was.
They made it look to where she was every bit as integral to Westinghouse's business too, and I thought that was a great little take, that not to just put the woman off to the side. She was instrumental in his business. So
in these days of telling stories, even if they were back then, you're not going to put a woman to the side.
Yeah, right.
Generally speaking, but it worked well within the story, and I'm sure she was an integral part of you know, he couldn't have done what he did without her support, you know.
No.
It's all a team effort. So talking about bringing the light and then going back to the darkness. I don't care that this film is the lowest in the entire franchise, the one that we were talking about, Terminator Dark Fate.
Dark Fate, okay.
Yeah. But I've always been a big Terminator fan. Obviously, spoiler warnings if you hadn't seen any of these films, but basically, you didn't see it.
Yes, I saw it.
You did see it. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, I've seen everything on this list.
Ouch.
Sorry. No, that wasn't meant to be a dig.
No. I know. I'm upset at my AMC. I've not used it since the next film we're talking about in a second. So there's like a bunch that I've missed that I'm upset about.
That's what I'm here for.
Exactly. Yeah, to fill us in. But Terminator Dark Fate, I loved. You know, there's a lot of things about the woke culture and all this and that and the female empowerment, and they definitely put that out there, and that didn't bother me with this film, even though it is so pro-female, and that's fine. My love for the Terminator franchise and time travel and robots and AI and all of that supersedes anything. I definitely have a blind eye when it comes to the Terminator franchise. I'm one of the few that liked Genesis. I thought it was an interesting retelling. Nothing is going to be better than the first one. Nothing is going to certainly be better than Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Yeah.
T2 was just perfect in every way, and that's when Cameron walked away from it.
And I thought this was interesting that they're treating this as T3, even though T3 already exists.
Yeah. We forgot about that. And is it Tim Miller who did Deadpool? He directed this, and Cameron was talking in an interview where he said there was blood on the walls and the floor and everything, basically talking about how they just did not get along. And he said, but such is filmmaking, but then he talked about another director he worked with, and it was just like synergy, but you know, it goes to question though, because he was only a producer on this. Had James Cameron actually came back and directed this, I think it would have been better.
Or had a hand in the script. I don't think he had a hand in the script.
He might have, got a little bit of credit, but there are a few writers on it.
My issue with the film are part with the script and the dialogue, and I think the actors did as well as they could. I really liked the lead, Mackenzie Davis. I thought
she was fantastic. I mean, she was convincing, and she wasn't like Christina Loken, even though that doesn't exist in the canon now, but whatever, it still exists to me. And she was a Terminatrix or whatever they wanted to or whatever, Terminator X or whatever. But yeah, she played it very like Jason Patrick did, the very robotic movements and all that.
And she's supposed to be engineered, right? She's still human, but...
Well, no. Okay, I was talking about Christina Loken in Terminator 3.
The original T3.
The original T3. But yes, in this one... what's her name again? Grace?
Mackenzie Davis.
Mackenzie Davis, thank you. Yeah, she is basically an augmented human. So she's kind of, little bit of she's not a cyborg, but she's, got stuff to enhance her and give her a little superhuman speed and, abilities and stuff like that. And I'm sorry, the film works for me. I mean, people that have seen it said it's a good film, but
I think it works because of it's well paced. It moves along quickly.
It's got good action.
The action scenes are great. I will say I went and complained to my theater again about the brightness on the bulbs, because a lot of these action scenes are at night.
Right.
Because they're cheaper to film the 3D stuff at night, or when there's no lighting.
Right.
So I had to go and say, look, I did not enjoy this film as much because you had your dang bulbs turned down again.
Oh Lord, it's the bulb guy. Yeah. Is it Edison or is it a Tesla?
But and obviously that's not the filmmaker's fault. That's the theater's fault. So, but I was impressed with the action and the pacing of the film.
I like the new Terminator. That seemed
he did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, and there were a lot of things. We're talking too much about this film, but I really love this
But we've
film.
both seen it, so
And,
we'll probably go more briskly through the other
rest
ones.
of the list. But yeah, I didn't see the part where John Connor gets killed and all that, and the CGI in that I think worked very well. Some people say
Yeah, it was to see young Eddie Furlong.
Yeah, because nobody wants to see older Eddie Furlong apparently.
Yeah, right.
But I could see that. I love Linda Hamilton. It reminded me a bit of Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, how, the stronger female coming back after all this time, and she worked herself to death. She said, basically, if they try to do another one, she's going to fake her death. Yeah. Linda Hamilton, she said, because she lost a lot of weight. She got herself in like tip-top shape, the best she could, and her character was believable. And in the nugget where the Terminator, which is Arnold, gets to live his life out after his programming's done, he didn't just cease to exist. He had to have purpose, and he found the family, and it was just really. And he said he won't be back, and I really did believe that's he's 70-ish years old. We can't expect another Arnold film, and unfortunately, the premise hasn't changed enough with the whole Terminator franchise. It's kind of the same movie over and over again, the same premise.
Yes, that's where I had problems with the script. It's basically, let's just rewrite it with a young girl.
And this Genesis was a smash up, and then it turned things around and made John Connor kind of this augmented whatever. He merged with the AI kind of thing, kind of like Neo, I guess, a little bit in Matrix Revolutions. Ugh. And but yeah, it still was a little different. But anyway, I enjoyed the film. I'd watch it over and over again. I don't care if it's part of a universe or alternate timeline. I don't give a crap.
I definitely can't wait to see it on my 4K television where I can actually see the action instead of the darkly lit theater production.
You're going to invite me over because I don't have a 4K TV. But yeah. Next movie that I saw, and I don't know, well, you said you saw everything on the list. I saw Harriet, and I was very impressed with it. I was more impressed than you were.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about it. Like the lead, Cynthia Erivo, is amazing. Like her performance is easily the best thing about this movie. Yeah, and I could definitely see her getting an Oscar nomination for this.
Me too.
She's fantastic in it. However, everybody around her is pretty bad. Like for me, the acting was very bad around her, except for the guy who plays her father. I thought did a great job. Yeah. Which is like that line where he's like, I didn't see you, because he covers his eyes. So he doesn't have to lie.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so I don't have to.
He was great. And then I thought Leslie Odom Jr., who plays the other conductor that's really masterminding it, he was really good. But I felt like the supporting cast around them really suffered.
Didn't support him enough.
Even Joe Alwyn, I believe is his name, he plays the young guy that's basically the villain. He wasn't very good. Jennifer Nettles, who's a country singer, played the mother on the plantation, the white matriarch. Oh my God,
I didn't realize that was her. I realize that now.
Sugarland. Yeah, and so she, and you think that you're going to have Jennifer Nettles on there so she can sing. And she's very underused in that. I did like how they used the spirituals as part of the storytelling.
Oh yeah, when she had to say goodbye to Harriet had to say goodbye to her mother, like the code, and that was something that was an actual thing back then.
And so those moments make it, a little bit better of a film. But I don't see this as an Oscar contender.
I was easily crying in parts of the film. I was tearing up, and then I was cheering. When. In an amazing life that Harriet Tubman
lived. And it's a story that's never been presented on the big screen. We've seen it on the small screen, but never on the big screen. So I think that in that regard, it was important to tell, and I hope Erivo gets some recognition for her performance. I think she will. Yeah. But other than that, I don't think it's that great of a film altogether. I think it had script issues and acting issues, but
the next film, somebody said it's just a student film, really. And Lighthouse.
I get, because it's so bizarre. it is a bizarre film, and I can see where people are coming from with that.
Right.
But the things that make this not a student film are the two incredible acting performances
By Batman.
by the future Batman and Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
Both give Oscar-worthy performances. I don't see how Dafoe is not nominated for this.
I hope he gets nomination. And
they both have to go through this. It's basically their descent into madness. They're two guys that work at a lighthouse. They're stranded away from anybody else, and the weather's awful, and they're bound to go mad. And the way that Dafoe's character tries to dominate Pattinson's character is an interesting dynamic. And they're both using these outdated, like these accents, from Maine or wherever they're from. It's like it's like an old, Dafoe as this old seaman,
and he probably digs. From what I can see, in all fairness and transparency, I've not seen anything else we're going to talk about on this list because I was sick. But a lot of these are films I wanted to see, and just aesthetically, it looks like a film I would enjoy.
And again, why this is not a student film is the cinematography is black and white and gorgeous. And then the sound design. And I think you'll appreciate this film because of it. The sound design is top notch.
Oh, yeah. So, I definitely need to fill up my AMC and go and see it. I've got to get some time soon.
Again, I think that it falls short of Best Picture caliber. It might sneak in there because it's so unique.
I would love to see Willem Dafoe get something.
But I think he's the lock. I think he's the lock as a nomination from this film. And Pattinson could sneak in.
But can you introduce me as Joker?
What?
Okay. When you say he's a lock for best, were you saying for lead actor?
No, Dafoe would be supporting.
Supporting.
Okay.
It's okay. Then that joke's misplaced.
You really fall. You really follow Pattinson more.
Okay.
It's really his story. So Dafoe is more the supporting.
But do you think he overshines Pattinson some?
Yes.
Okay.
He absolutely does. But
I heard Pattinson's good.
Yeah, and I think he could sneak into the lead actor, Pattinson, that is, but it's so heavily contested this year. I don't know. It would be tough for him to get there.
Well, didn't Affleck, before he played Batman, did he get an Oscar?
He won Best Director
for Argo.
Yeah,
right. Okay, so I don't know.
He also won.
That doesn't.
No,
mean
wait.
anything,
I'm sorry. He did not win Best Director. He was snubbed. He did not get nominated for Best Director. That was a big snub that year. Although I don't think he deserved it. I think Argo's overrated. Argo won Best Picture.
Okay.
He won an Oscar for writing Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon.
Right.
So that's where his Oscar comes from.
Next one on there is Motherless Brooklyn with
Edward Norton.
Yeah,
this is his passion project. He wrote, produced, acted, directed. So he did everything on this. He talked about how he got the other actors to basically come on for nothing because he had no money to make this, and so it's been taken.
We're talking about the local film industry, or
yeah, right. But
passion project.
It's a great little story about power, and it's definitely timely, resonates with today's times. Alec Baldwin essentially plays a Trump-like character, which is interesting.
A stretch for him, right?
which I found interesting because he plays Trump on SNL.
Now doesn't his character, and I will admit I don't know a lot about this film other than the trailer that I saw, but does he have some kind of like tick?
He has
something?
Tourette's.
Tourette's.
His character has Tourette's. So again, I could see Norton be nominated for lead actor here. Again, it's a heavily contested year, but he should be in the conversation.
Yeah.
Because he does deliver a believable performance of a person with Tourette's. So, I mean, it's worth watching. The cinematography is beautiful. Gugu, I can't say her last name, Mbatha.
No help.
You're not going to try to help me on that one. She's really good in the supporting role. Willem Dafoe's in it as well, and is
of
great.
Course,
yeah.
He's everywhere.
So,
he's mopping up the studio.
If he's not nominated for Lighthouse, he might be nominated for this. I think he gives a better performance in Lighthouse, but but it's worth seeing. It's basically about corruption and power and race relations too. I mean, it's about how minorities are treated less than, and so it's a very timely movie,
Okay.
and Edward Norton delivers here. Again, it may be kind of forgotten a little bit, and once some of these other newer movies come out, but it's definitely, as far as Oscar contender, it's more of an Oscar contender than the next three we're going to talk about. So,
And the next one on the list is the sequel to The Shining, the classic Stephen King film, or adapted from Stephen King.
Stanley Kubrick film.
Yeah. Well,
but I know what you're saying. It's based on the Stephen King novel. Yeah,
I always think Stephen King. That's just me. But Dr. Sleep with Ewan McGregor.
Yes, and I love this. I'm a big Stanley Kubrick fan. Love The Shining. I know Stephen King had his problems with the original, Kubrick's The Shining, and you can definitely tell that the things that were missing from The Shining are put into the themes of this one, because Stephen King was upset about The Shining because it didn't delve into alcoholism. And because in the book, that's a big.
Well, you see Jack Nicholson in The Shining in the bar.
You do, but it just
doesn't-
touched on. It
Right.
really isn't a central theme. So like those themes get kind of forgotten in Kubrick's film, and so but it's at the forefront here in Doctor Sleep, and his character Danny Torrance is all grown up,
Right.
But he's dealing with addiction. He's dealing with alcoholism. He's dealing with what he went through as a kid.
Yeah.
So, but I loved it. I thought it was a great continuation of the story. I want to say her name's Rebecca Ferguson, plays the villain who's after the children. Who
I
wants-
liked her
wants
little her outfit with the little
Yeah.
hat and everything. It looked
Yeah,
kinda
Rose
cool.
the Hat. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and,
her. That's the character's name, Rose the Hat.
Yeah. Well, I just remember. I remember the original Shining in 1980. I was 10 years old, and my parents fell asleep or something, and it was on the TV on HBO, and I saw it, and I remember it scared the hell out of me. And I don't know that I've ever seen the film since, but I think I was more scared how Shelley Duvall looked in it.
Yeah, no, and she
But,
gives a great performance in that original. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the interesting thing they do here in Doctor Sleep is they actually do have some scenes that are like flashbacks, and they
Right.
go back to
Like the blood coming off, like
the blood coming out of the elevator, the twins,
the shot of like the not cornfield. What is that? No.
it's a maze,
Maze
The
and all
hedge
that, and
maze.
like the hotel, and it's like the right color, because I met without knowing anything. Well, knowing the original, those are definitely images. I'm like, boom, check. That's from the first one.
Right.
The little kid on the
tricycle,
the two girls. I mean, those are iconic,
and they do those,
especially in horror.
and they do a recreation of those moments in Doctor Sleep, and they do a great job. They even cast people in the Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson roles,
Interesting.
and have little cameos. And the woman they got to play Shelley Duvall is amazing, and like she gets her mannerisms, the way she speaks.
Wow.
She's not in a ton of scenes, but they do recreate the bathroom scene.
Oh gosh.
Where she's cowering with the knife in there and screaming, and she's spot on. She does a great job. Now, the guy they got to play Jack Nicholson did not quite do it.
It's hard to Nicholson.
It's Henry Thomas, who plays the kid in E.T. He's now all grown up.
Wow.
But he plays that role, but he doesn't quite look enough like Jack to make it work.
Okay.
But I did like how they continued the story. He comes across another girl who has the power that he does, and he has to protect her.
This makes me think of something that, I've seen Collider's done a bunch of deep fakes, like interviews with like Robert Downey Jr. and the George Lucas one that went viral and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It makes me think, and I think this discussion started to come out, that in fact, they're doing this with James Dean. It's rumored that he's going to appear in a film. I mean, he's been passed away
60 years.
60 years. And I don't know how I feel about this. It's kind of like, when they said they might digitally put Carrie Fisher into The Rise of Skywalker, and people are like, oh dear, no.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, they could, if they wanted to, they could probably have put a de-aged, took my Jack Nicholson's face and superimposed it and de-aged him. And
I think the main issue with that that people have is it takes jobs away from
right,
actors
and then eventually how long does your likeness go? There's another question for another time. Are they allowed to use your likeness beyond your death, or eventually? Not that Nicholson's dead, but you know what I'm saying. Or like James Dean or something like interesting, but just a tangent thought there. But so Dr. Sleep, you loved it.
I did. I think I was disappointed in the box office, but again, I always say box office doesn't equal quality.
Right.
So
there's been a lot of massive bombs. Dark Fate was one of them. And
I think that timing has a lot to do with it. Dr. Sleep was released a week after Halloween.
I've heard that talk.
Why? I don't understand that. So
it would have. Yeah, maybe they didn't want to get pigeonholed as like a Halloween type movie, but I mean. Yeah, it would have. It seemed like it was a week later than it should have been, and maybe that could have helped it. I agree with you on that. Next on the list, we have one that's basically a sci-fi special effects kind of show. It's
a visual effects.
Effects.
I want to be clear to make that distinction.
Thank you.
Yeah, because special effects are practical, that you're actually doing. Visual effects is the CGI, and this is a CGI visual effects movie directed by the same guy who did Independence Day. So, in that regard,
Roland Emmerich?
Yes, Roland Emmerich, very good.
Who just apologized for Independence Day resurgence.
Oh, good. He needed to.
Yeah, he did. And he should have been like Will Smith and just, jump ship.
Yeah, right. But yeah, Midway is it shines in that regard. The dog fighting and the battle scenes, you see Pearl Harbor at the beginning. So that's how the film opens. And then you see the Battle of Midway as well. So that in that regard, it really shines, but the acting is terrible. And I like some of these actors.
It makes me think of like, I remember when Titanic came out and then Pearl Harbor came out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was more concerned with seeing the actual Titanic done on the big screen without the whole love story thing. And that's basically a love story that happens during that. And Pearl Harbor was kind of treated the same way, a lesser film, of course. And, was this different, or this one, did this feel more authentic, I guess, or
no?
No,
it just felt like a visual effects movie. There's no character development at all. Like, it just jumps in, and you're supposed to feel for these characters, and you don't, because you don't know them. And so that's where the biggest issue is. And then the acting that supports it's pretty weak too. You got, when you have a Jonas brother as one of your main actors, it's probably an issue.
Yeah. So let's talk about total garbage next. It's time to take the trash out.
Yeah.
Charlie's Angels. You saw it.
Yeah. Easily one of the worst movies I've seen this year, or hell, maybe even the decade. It's so bad. And
we didn't want it. We didn't ask for it. It's here, and
it's trying too much to be like, there's a difference between feminism and just outright man
is bad.
Yeah, man. Like I really do think they should have called this film "All White Men Are Evil." It really is. It really felt that way. It was like every portrayal of a man except for Jaimin Hunsu, who's black, is a negative one.
Right.
And so it's like, this is the overcompensation, it's like we're going too far. It's like, this is about equality. And that point is getting, that's what feminism is about. It's about equal, being equal. But yet films like this put down men,
and I had a problem with that. And I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but The Last Jedi, Oscar Isaac. Yeah, they changed it. No, his Poe Dameron character, he's basically he's like, shut up and sit down, Laura Dern's character, how she treats him. And then she turns around in the next scene. Well, he is kind of cute. And I'm like, it's not doing it right. It's like dumb man. It's like Finn in all those movies. He's just running after Rey. Somebody did a video of him through the trilogy, and he's just running around after Rey. No story development there, And I love strong characters in film, and maybe I'm blinded a little bit on Terminator Dark Fate, but I didn't mind that all-female, trilogy of cast there because they were badass.
Well, it didn't treat the men in the story like they were stupid,
and I know there's, this whole social justice thing, it's fine. I want strong female characters. I want to see them. I want to see that, but you don't have to do it at the expense of a man being stupid.
And I actually I won't say I had high hopes for this, but I respect Elizabeth Banks.
You needed to be honest. You had 3 films you could see that week, and you had to put a 3rd film in there because you wanted to get your money's worth.
I needed to get my 3rd AMC movie in, so I was like, I'll go see this and see how it is.
Yeah.
But I respect Elizabeth Banks a lot. I love her.
I do too.
And I thought, what she did with the Pitch Perfect franchise was fantastic. So I actually thought this movie could be good with her, comedic touch.
Right.
And yet the comedy falls short. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 laughs you get from Kristen Stewart's character.
Right.
She's pretty good at it. But it's just, it really does fall short. I did not enjoy any of it. It's cliche.
Even with Patrick Stewart in it.
It's basically,
I'm sure it was just a cameo.
No, it's actually, it's more than that. And he's one of the white men that are evil.
Oh.
And they,
not Captain Picard.
So
Professor X.
It's, it's very cliche. They, you see it coming. It's just like basically they took a bad action movie from the 90s and put women in it instead of men.
Honestly, the first Charlie's Angels was fine with me. Obviously, the original series was fine with me. After that, Full Throttle and all the other ones, I didn't care. I didn't care when this came out. I was like, this is something I don't need rebooted again.
And they do throw in the cameos of like they have, I can't remember. I think it's Kate Jackson. Maybe it shows up at the end, or one of them. But it seems just tacked on.
Right, totally. It probably totally is.
And so there's stuff like that. I don't know. It's just not worth going to see. It is bombing and
and talking about this film is stinking up the place. So let's get into something that's gonna totally turn that around.
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit. You saw that, and I want to see it. Hopefully I will get to see it.
I had the pleasure of seeing this yesterday. It should be a Best Picture contender. I could see Scarlett maybe getting supporting. And the kid, like, I'm usually pretty against kid actors. Like, they usually don't deliver good performances, but this kid does give a great performance in the lead. And so does I think her name's Thomasin McKenzie, plays the young Jew he finds and that his mother's hiding.
Do we need to give a disclaimer here?
That I am Jewish and I can say what I want.
You would probably have an interesting perspective that I wouldn't.
Right. I've always been able, and I think this is in large part to my dad, and watching Mel Brooks films growing up and the Marx Brothers and whatnot, I can laugh at myself.
In Chaplin, right?
Yes, in Chaplin as well. But I feel like you're supposed to be able to laugh at yourself. Mm-hmm. If you go into Jojo Rabbit not understanding it's a satire, I could see how you could get upset because there are some jokes at Jewish people's expense.
Right.
But it's in the context that this is absurd that somebody actually thinks this way. It's kind of like Borat. Okay, so like Borat did the same thing where it put down Jews, but Cohen's Jewish.
Well, the thing is, I wasn't never a big fan of Borat. I thought it was kind of dumb comedy. I mean, I get it now, but back then I didn't.
Don't get me wrong. I'm only comparing it in that regard, is where they there's Jew bashing, but it's done by a Jewish writer. So it's kind of like making this point again that these people are,
And you said in your showing, an older white couple walked out.
well, one man, he walked out about 30 minutes into it, and it made me wonder, like, did he just have something else going on, or was he truly offended? And he possibly could have been, because there are some jokes at the expense of Jews, as I said. But again, it's it's basically commentary on how ridiculous hate is. And so that's what the beauty of this movie. And it's not like Borat because it's got heart.
Right.
I won't say that Borat. Well, no,
Borat was a comedy.
didn't have. It was more slapstick.
Right.
But this does have heart. Taika Waititi, who directed Thor Ragnarok, and people are digging his stuff now, and he rightfully so. He plays Hitler, but he also wrote the script and directed. He does an amazing job of balancing that tone between comedy and drama,
because there's a fine line to walk in that.
It is a fine line. Especially in a Holocaust film.
Right.
So, and I can only think of one other Holocaust film that inserts comedy, and that was Life is Beautiful with Roberto Benigni, and he won an Oscar for that screenplay.
I kind of think maybe there's some parallels to Mel Brooks a little bit.
There's definitely... So this is probably the third, I think, from off the top of my head, the third successful satire of Hitler that I can think of. Right. First off, you have The Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, yeah.
And that was 1939, I believe. And think about that. Like, that he made a satire about Hitler when Hitler was coming to power.
Yeah.
And the war had just begun or was about to begin.
And not to compare and say that it's as good, but remember the interview during the Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong, whatever his name was, and how they did that.
And so, but yeah, you're right with Mel Brooks as well, because in The Producers, the whole thing is about a musical about Hitler. Springtime for Hitler.
And it's
so.
We've forgotten that we can laugh at things, and humor is now people marginalized, their careers ended, this cancel culture where you can't laugh at some things,
Right, and that's what people should take away from this. You need to be able to laugh, but you also have to understand the absurdity. The absurdity of hate and the absurdity of war, and that's the point of Jojo Rabbit.
Right.
There is a heartbreaking moment, like amidst all this laughter, because really Hitler's that character in this film is the funniest thing, like because he's basically this boy's imaginary friend. And his conscience.
His imaginary friend is Hitler, which is just the premise is kind of like absurdly funny.
Because it follows this Hitler youth who is gung ho. He's a fanatic. He's all about it because that's it's kind of indoctrinated into him. So
exactly.
So that's the great thing about this movie. It's like it really does kind of make it absurd, and you're laughing, but then again, I don't want to really spoil it because it just came out and people need to see it, but there is a heartbreaking moment, and it's actually a very, very intelligent director. Like the way he did this shot, like there's some shot there's a build up to this scene, where visually you see this image once and then twice, and then the third time you see it, it's devastating. And so I really, I can't emphasize how beautiful of a film this is, even though it's a satire. And that's the thing. It's like when it's so hard, we already said, it's so hard to balance tone. It's like, how do you mix these genres and make it, an enjoyable film?
I'm Catholic, okay, and I watched The Passion of the Christ, which is hard for me to watch. I've seen it several times, but it's hard to watch it. And I don't come away. There was a controversy that Mel Gibson, which I think is a fantastic director, and said, basically that film shows that the Jews killed Jesus. Well, that we know that's not technically true. I mean, on some level it is, but
right. I mean, he does,
but it doesn't. Yeah,
no, he does show the high priest condemning him,
right?
But and that is a part of the story, but it's not. That is such an oversimplification, which is a huge problem. today, and probably always, but it's definitely a huge problem today. But that's an oversimplification because the Romans actually carry out. But anyway,
right. But my point is that being Catholic, I don't go, oh yeah, those Jews did that. No. I don't look at that because I know the truth is beyond that. Jesus, nothing would have happened that he wouldn't have allowed. And so I don't come away from that, and maybe people shouldn't come away from Jojo Rabbit thinking
right.
This is anti-Jewish film. This is or whatever. It's like, to me, The Passion of Christ is not anti-Jew or Jew bad, and Christian good.
And if that one member that left early had stayed to the end, he would have seen that this is not an anti-Jew movie. This is,
right.
It's not the point. It is really, really phenomenal. Honestly, I just think it deserves to be put there with Life is Beautiful and The Great Dictator.
And there's word that this could be a Best Picture nominee, that there could be some awards coming out of this, and
which is interesting because they typically don't honor comedies, and this is a satire. Yes, there are some dramatic moments,
but it is comedies.
A satire.
We haven't had good comedies this latter part of the decade, or most of this decade. And
so if it does not get nominated, that's probably wise because it's a comedy. But
and the thing about it is, everybody is the word now is triggered. Oh, this triggers me. I get that, and I'm not making less of that, but let's not be triggered by a film like this that tackles a difficult subject. We need to sometimes laugh at ourselves. We need to laugh at society. We need to laugh at things, even things that are horrific.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's in this film, he's talking about the little boy is like saying how all Jews have horns, and where's your tail, and where are your scales, and I mean, it's just, yes, that's
and there's
awful.
Probably some people that literally thought that back then.
Well, especially the kids. I think that's the point, is the indoctrination and
right.
Of the Hitler Youth, and
hate is taught. It's not something we're born naturally to do, right. And maybe this film will show us that we can laugh at ourselves. We can embrace some of those things, and I give I can never say his name, but
Taika Waititi.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's adventurous, and it shows a great filmmaker that can go from something like Thor Ragnarok to this.
Yeah,
that says a lot about his ability to write, to direct, and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Switching gears real quick, we're going to talk about 3 films. Everybody knows they're calling it the Savannah Film Festival now, but the SCAD had their film festival here. I had D.W. Moffat on my Savannah on Film radio show, and I got to interview him and talk a little bit about it. But you actually physically got to go to see some films, and you saw some possible Oscar contenders there.
Yeah, the 3 that I want to talk about mainly are definitely Oscar contenders. The main one, which was a treat to see, actually, all of these were sold out screenings, which was cool. But Parasite, I think, should be a shoe-in for Best Picture nominee. Seen this in a packed house, about 1,400 people. It was a really cool experience. This movie is about the haves and have-nots.
Right.
And so it had
not Tyler Perry's.
Yeah, not that. So it's kind of there's some similarities with Joker, I guess, in a way, because it's about how the different classes are treated.
Right.
So I think
disenfranchised.
And I think that's going to be a common theme with the Oscar films this year.
Mm-hmm.
Disenfranchised people. With the Me Too movement, there's going to be some movies there that, get some recognition. But this one, God, the characters are so likable. Parasite. The characters are so likable. The movie moves so quickly, and you're on it. You're with them the whole way, and it again, just kind of like Jojo Rabbit, it balances these different genres, these different tones, yes, it's first and foremost a comedy, but
Right.
there's a couple moments that are horrific. They are basically, it's a horror film for a couple moments.
Right.
It's also, a drama, but there's also some visual stuff.
It's
in
one
there.
of those films, just like for me, for like Jojo Rabbit especially, that I wasn't sure how to take it, know, and I think some of the audiences might be that way. I think with Parasite, one of the things I'm hearing is, Americans aren't going to read their movies,
and that's a shame.
that is a shame.
But because this is a fantastic movie, and it's not that hard to read subtitles, people.
Right. Passion of the Christ was mostly subtitled.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I didn't mind reading it. I knew the story, of course, but but Parasite, not what I expected. I have not seen it yet, and I don't even think it's playing here.
It has not played at the
Savannah,
main
which is
theaters. That's why I made a point to go see
Yeah.
it. But if it gets some Oscar nominations, then maybe it gets released.
Maybe it gets a run, and it should. It sounds. I mean, and this was one when I saw the previews for it. I'm like, I have to see this, and unfortunately, I didn't get to go to the festival.
If somehow it doesn't follow in Roma's footsteps and as a foreign film that gets nominated for Best Picture, it'll definitely be up for foreign language film and will win. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I could definitely see it getting into the Best Picture conversation, and it should. Another great film I saw at the film fest was Honey.
And I want to see this.
It was Honey Boy. Shot basically an autobiographical take from Shia LaBeouf and him growing up in the film business.
Right, and the key of this whole film is how realistically, I guess, he portrays his father in the film. Whether he walks that line or he skews it to his favor, versus that.
Yeah, and he plays his father in this too, which is interesting. So Shia LaBeouf, I think, could be nominated for screenplay easily, or supporting actor as he plays his father. Again, there's another movie where the lead is a kid. And he does a great job.
And this movie is coming off of the one filmed here.
Yeah, Peanut Butter Falcon. Yeah.
Which is basically kind of a Huck Finn kind of story. And I enjoyed that film. I got to see it in theaters, and I loved it.
And while Shia was here filming that, he got arrested and then went to rehab. So this story stems from that. Because
he literally recently thanked the police officers in Savannah that took him to jail for his disorderly conduct or whatever, and for that changing his life around. And my wife has always said that, from way back, and I forgot, she mentioned what he was originally in.
I think it was Even Steven.
Yeah, exactly. And she said, he's going to be something really good one day as an actor.
Holes, maybe Holes.
Yeah, well, I think, but
either way.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, of course, we know him from the not Terminator films, Transformers films, which there's not much to speak of there, in acting ability. But I mean, he was fine at the time, I guess, for that. But I really think Honey Boy, I've been saying that this is going to be something that this might be Oscar worthy, and I have not seen it, but just going off of
it is
trailers that I've seen,
especially the script, because he wrote this while he was in rehab, and it was basically him trying to come to terms with his addiction. And
Hollywood loves
where
those
does
stories.
Absolutely, it's a redemption story, and in a way, I mean, he's not fully back yet, but he's on his way. He's dealt with his addiction, or is dealing with his addiction, and why he was an addict. And that stems from his relationship with his parents, and specifically his father, which he shows in the film. And I think the film makes a great point about alcoholics, and that it's a disease. And a lot of people just say
it's not a choice all the time. Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that alcoholics make that choice to just drink. Right. And this kind of makes it, say, well, wait.
Or you at least have a proclivity, more than likely, that you're going to be an alcoholic. I suppose if you had some kind of extreme discipline and you were able to totally focus, that you might be able to lessen your fall into that. But
this definitely shows it as genetics, and that it is a disease, and that we should treat treat alcoholics humanely instead of just writing them off. They need help. So in that regard, it's a beautiful script, and I hope it gets some recognition.
Yeah. And now you want to talk about a doc or two?
Yeah,
That you saw there
I'll
at the Film Festival?
touch on a few, but I'll focus on one. I got the pleasure to see the docs to watch roundtable, where 10 directors of 10 different documentaries all came and talked about their films.
Right.
One being Knock Down the House, which is on Netflix. It's about AOC's campaign. Well, not just what's her name, Ocasio-Cortez. I'm in New York.
Yeah.
She becomes the star of the film because she's the one woman that they follow that wins. But it follows four women trying to be elected, and she ends up winning. So she's kind of the star of the film. But that was one that was featured in this docs to watch. Diego Maradona, about the Argentinian soccer player. There's also one on him that was directed by Asif Kapadia, who did Senna, and the one on Amy Winehouse, which are both fantastic. This one, for me, kind of falls a little short compared to his other two, but it's still decent. But the one documentary that I think will be a shoe-in for an Oscar nomination, and probably the win, is one called Maiden, and it follows the all female sailing crew that in the late 80s, because nobody would take a woman onto their crew on this around the world sailing competition. This woman decided that she was just going to make her own crew, and it was going to be all women. And the story is really about perseverance. And it really is a really well done documentary.
I think I had heard about this one, and I didn't know that they had that this was the same one. But I grew up with my dad and my parents, and of course, and my dad. We always watched like the America's Cup, and I remember this story when I was younger about this, and so I'm sure it would be fascinating to actually see that doc.
And I think that's the takeaway from this is like, yes, you kind of remember it from when you were a kid, but why is it not more well known? Because they did really well in this race. I won't spoil it, because I think it when you see these moments,
because it's a male dominated sport, and they're holding down us, no.
But I mean,
but no, honestly, it is.
And it really is, the story, again, I'll say, it really is about perseverance and sticking to your guns and doing what you want to do. And,
following your passion.
So I think that's worth seeing, and it's called Maiden.
So what's next? Some films as we kind of close out. These are coming up are some films, including a trio from Netflix that we're going to talk about. But
yeah, we'll just touch on these. I think these are ones to look out for, with the Oscar nominations not too far, those will be released in the new year. But these other ones that will be considered, we've got 1917, which I think will be a shoo-in, especially from what I've read about the style of this filmmaking. It's Sam Mendes who directed Skyfall, and it's it's a war film about World War I. The style of this film supposedly is just like Birdman, where it's supposed to be one continuous long take. Yes, there are edits.
Difficult.
Yeah, for a 2-hour war movie.
How do you? That's
isn't it unfathomable? I'm really curious to see how they do this. Obviously, you've got you have edit points. Like in Birdman, there were like 8 or 9 edit points that they did, but it seemed like it was one long take. So this will be the same idea. I love a good war movie. I think that it will be great.
My only fear is that it looks. I'm not comparing it at all to Midway, but my fear is that it's going to be big spectacle and not have substance. But because I'm probably wrong about that.
Yes, you are.
That's fine. I can admit it.
No, without pulling punches, it's a different director. Roland Emmerich is a visual.
Totally.
It's a different vibe, man. And so Sam Mendes, he did. What did he start out? He did American Beauty and Jarhead.
Oh yeah,
and Skyfall.
I love Skyfall.
He's a little more. There's a little more substance to his work.
There's a lot more. I'll say that. The next film on the list is "Won't You Be My Neighbor?" and
or A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Won't You Be My Neighbor was
excuse me, that was the
documentary. But yeah, the same story.
They do sing, the kids in there sing "Won't You Be"?
They do at the end of the trailer. Yeah.
But
so this could be
documentary was what, last year? Which one?
A year or two ago, and it unceremoniously got snubbed,
which made no sense. And I've seen snippets of it, and you told me it's a fantastic.
It's a beautiful film.
Beautiful film. But this Tom Hanks casting him as Fred Rogers, as Mr. Rogers. Oh my gosh, it's
when you see this preview, doesn't it just make you smile?
Somebody already said it's going to, yes, and somebody said it's going to be a Hank Miss. Hank Smith or whatever, because Tom Hanks and I could see, and we're in this politically correct time, and we've got to have fair representation, and I'm not saying it like that's a bad thing. I know it sounds that way, but it's really honestly not meant that way. But I think it should come down to performances. I don't care who you are, what you look like, where you come from. It's all about that role and a particular role you're playing. And I hope Tom Hanks doesn't. I think he gets a nomination easily for Best Actor.
Well,
I haven't even seen.
Here's the thing: from what I've read,
it just looks so wonderful.
They're putting him in supporting.
Interesting,
because I think. And we'll understand that more when we see it, but I think it's because they're following the reporter.
Oh, you're right.
It's the reporter's story, and then so I feel like Tom Hanks is getting put into the supporting category. That's probably smart because, again, as I said, I think on earlier in this one and probably in the other podcast, that lead actor is very crowded.
Because we're going to talk about the next one we're going to talk about in a second is Ford versus Ferrari, which is out and was filmed partially here in Savannah. But I think I texted you the other day. We've got help me out with the characters. I'm forgetting their names. The actors.
Christian Bale and Matt Damon from Ford vs. Ferrari.
And then I said, wouldn't it be something if they both somehow got nominated for Best Actor? If they're both equally good. I know one's probably supporting, and well, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we have
DiCaprio,
Brad Pitt and Pitt, and I'm pulling more for Pitt in this one than DiCaprio.
Well, here's the thing about the category issue. They have come out and said they are pushing Bale and Damon both for lead. So that, who knows, maybe they both get nominated. I don't think so. Bale typically outshines anybody in his movies. So, and again, we haven't seen it yet, but I don't think I just don't see them both getting nominated because of how many people. Now, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think DiCaprio is lead, Pitt, and Pitt is supporting.
And that's kind of how the story is set up in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is a fantastic film. And but yeah, what a year it's going to be for actors supporting or lead.
For lead, I mean, because you definitely have Joaquin Phoenix. Who should be a lock for Joker.
Yeah.
The buzz around De Niro for The Irishman is kind of undeniable. He'll probably be a lock.
There could be some talk that maybe there's a supporting. I don't think so though. But for Joker, for De Niro, supporting actor. But I don't think he was enough in that film enough to really get it. And if he had to get something, I'd rather him get it for The Irishman, which we haven't seen yet, obviously. But I think it's going to be spectacular. But. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, just one final thought on Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I just hope that they get the message that the documentary put across so well is that in today's times, we need to find, better outlets for our emotions, a way to deal with our emotions positively and not negatively like we do, like so many people do on the internet.
Right.
So I think that's an important thing that hopefully will be taken away.
Like they think, like, how do you deal with aggressive feelings? Well, you can hit a whatever on the piano and hit it hard. Right. I love the trailer for that. Yeah. And Tom Hanks, I feel like, and I haven't seen all these movies, but especially ones that are based upon, and this is going to make you cringe when I say this, but like Bohemian Rhapsody, I think he encapsulated Freddie Mercury, Rami Malek, and You Feel Differently. I think Tom Hanks really feels like the perfect casting for Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
He can do that gentle, kind soul that Fred Rogers was.
And in the trailers, you see him in the way he holds his hands and he walks, and he really has gotten Fred Rogers down.
I feel like, even in the year of great performances, I mean, Tom Hanks, you can never count him out.
Right.
And if he gets supporting actor, that's still spectacular.
Which his 2 Oscar wins are for lead, so he doesn't have a supporting. So hey,
why not? It's nothing lesser to me. Getting nominated is great, and winning is great.
So now let's touch on Ford Ferrari just a minute.
Yes.
It's getting Best Picture buzz, I think, because it's it's American story. It's American.
It's American.
So, I hope it's good. Christian Bale is usually
Didn't he lose a lot
phenomenal.
of weight or something for this role? He looks very depleted.
Well, he had gained weight for
something
Vice.
else.
So
so maybe that's why the last time I saw him, which he was brilliant in that. And that actually ties into the conversation, because that when we talked on the earlier episodes, last year or whatever, we were talking about how his Dick Cheney should have got Best Actor versus
Absolutely.
Remy Malek, and
not even close. Sorry.
I kind of concede a little bit on that, but I disagree.
Yeah. And let's try not to do too much of a tangent here, but I do want to bring this up about Rocket Man.
Yes.
So
great.
So
film.
Here's my theory. If Rocket Man is released first, Taron Egerton gets all the love and acclaim, and that movie gets all the love and acclaim, and Bohemian gets forgotten, in my opinion. Because this year, Rocket Man's going to get forgotten. You watch. And Taron Egerton actually sings the songs and encapsulate Elton John.
Yes.
But
I am not taking a thing away from Rocket Man.
He will probably get nominated for a Golden Globe because they have musical comedy category. So they can throw him into there. But I think he has no shot at an Oscar nomination, which is sad because his performance is better than Rami Malek's. Sorry. In my opinion. But I didn't want to go too far off on a tangent here.
I mean,
but I'm just saying, think about it.
I'm having a hard time disagreeing with you.
If
I
Rocket
want to
Man,
disagree with you, but
if they're flipped, I think you see the fervor for Rocket Man, and then Bohemian gets forgotten. But instead, Bohemian came out first, gets all the attention. Now Rocket Man's going to get forgotten, even though it's a better movie and a better performance.
Yeah. I'm not going to take anything away from Rocket Man. I was singing in the theater, so I was that way with Bohemian too. Yeah. But the performances, and it was real, and the fact that yes, he did the work. It's kind of like what was the film you liked with Lady Gaga and
Star is Born
and Gosling? Is it Gosling?
No,
Gosling.
it was Bradley Cooper.
I always get them confused.
Bradley Cooper gave a better performance than Rami Malek.
Right. We had that discussion, and you'd have to go back some episodes to oh dear, I'm getting angry.
Let's move on. Let's get back to this year.
Okay, so if we talk about Ford versus Ferrari.
We don't need to go too much into that. I think people are enjoying that. It's making good money, and I think it should be good. And
the next one that I think we're looking forward to is Little Women.
Yeah, it's Greta Gerwig who did Lady Bird, and it's her take on Little Women.
Right.
I do think this is, an important story that should be told every 20 years. I think it's a lasting treasure in literary history, and it'll be interesting to see how Greta Gerwig takes it. Saoirse Ronan plays the lead. You got Timothy Chalamet, Florence Pugh, Emma Watson. It's I think Meryl Streep.
Florence was in Midsommar.
Yes, Florence Pugh's from Midsommar.
Which I'm glad you convinced me to go see that very damn disturbing film that it was. Yeah. And it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And
so here's hoping Florence Pugh.
It makes me think of I Want to Be Your Sledgehammer.
Oh yeah.
But anyway. There's an attempt at humor.
So Florence Pugh hopefully will get nominated for something this year.
Yeah.
It might be Midsommar. It may be Little Women.
It'll be pew, 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 pew.
Pew, 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 pew. A couple more before we get into the Netflix ones. There's a Hidden Life.
Which cinematography looks beautiful. The story seems powerful.
And if anybody's familiar with Terrence Malick's films, he did Badlands, The Thin Red Line, A New World, Tree of Life. he can be polarizing because he takes these very long, seemingly boring takes. Just depends on how you see it.
Right.
But I think he's a master, and it's another set in Germany around Hitler's reign. So that'll be interesting. And then one that we did not write down, but I think is at least worth touching on because it's so timely, is Bombshell. That's going to be about Fox News and the sexual harassment issue there.
And that could be one that could steal a lot of thunder.
If it's done the right way, I think that it could be a big Oscar contender, especially Charlize Theron. She looks just like Megyn Kelly.
She's fantastic actress.
Yeah, and then you got Nicole Kidman as Gretchen Carlson.
She's very good.
You got John Lithgow as Roger Ailes.
Oh, dear God. Really?
Yeah.
He's just happy to get a role. Oh, no, John Lithgow. I'm thinking of, oh my gosh, the Saturday Night Live guy. What was his name? I don't even know if he's still around.
I don't know.
John Lithgow. I don't know where I went. Not making copies guy. Yeah, married to Morgan Fairchild. That's right.
Oh, John Lovitz.
Why in the world did I think of John Lovitz instead of
that's the ticket.
That's the ticket.
No, not Lovitz. Lithgow. He went from.
Oh yeah,
he had such a great time doing being in the fat suit for Winston Churchill's that he wanted to be in another fat suit as Roger Ailes. So, but I can see if done the right way, Bombshell could be an Oscar contender. Yeah, okay. But then we've got 3 serious Oscar contenders that Netflix is putting out. The first one is A Marriage Story. This is a Noah Baumbach film about basically a couple going through a divorce. And the reviews are stellar right now for it. It's got Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver in the leads.
Right.
And they're both getting big-time Oscar buzz. So there's another person right there in the lead category, Adam Driver, who's getting a lot of buzz. So that will be interesting. That could be, Scarlett getting 2 nominations too. Who knows? But I think it's more. It seems like it's more likely that she gets it for Marriage Story than Jojo Rabbit. But
to just put this in here, I know Marvel, because of the fan push or whatever, they're pushing Robert Downey Jr. for Best Actor. And,
supporting.
Supporting it in like the ensemble cast of Endgame.
Marvel, all movies do this, so it's not really a big deal. But Marvel put basically their whole cast up for supporting actor and supporting actress.
Right.
The only one that even deserves consideration is Downey.
Right.
And I don't think he even deserves consideration.
So,
I mean,
with the other competition this year, I mean, yes, to like give him something for his wonderful turn as Tony Stark. And the evolution of that character, and he is that character. I mean, but it's not of the caliber of some of these other performances.
No, and
don't get me wrong, I love Avengers, I love Endgame, I love Robert Downey Jr.
But Endgame is not as good a movie as Infinity War, in my opinion, and
as a cohesive story. Yeah, the time travel thing kind of screws it up.
I think
it's great fan
hopefully
service.
It kind of isn't. It really shouldn't be an Oscar contender. I'm sorry, but
I'm sorry if Black Panther could have been the first Marvel. Well, I guess the first one to be nominated. I know it's a little touchy territory, but I don't care.
Its cultural impact is undeniable.
It was more cultural impact than that. And it doesn't. And but in game for fan service. But anyway, that's a little off the subject there.
Yeah.
So back to our Netflix.
Yeah, let's talk about
Marriage Story.
Now let's talk about Two Popes instead, because I think we should end on the other one.
Okay, I agree.
Two Popes is going to get some consideration too. From what I've heard, Jonathan Pryce's performance is stellar. And then you also got Anthony Hopkins as the two popes. So that one will be interesting. And then the big one that has gotten a lot of there's maybe some controversy because of Scorsese's comments about Marvel films.
Oh gosh!
But a lot of people
walked some of that back.
But I get his point about calling them theme parks or theme attractions. But
ouch.
He's got The Irishman coming out on Netflix, and a limited release in theaters, so it's Oscar,
and there's that whole consideration of, because I think it's Netflix says you have to, or the theaters have something where it has to be 4 weeks in the theaters.
Well, technically, I think it's 70. I want to say 72 days. I think it's supposed. Yeah, but. Yeah. They've amended it to like 35 now, I think, or something like that. So there's the debate over that. Well, how long does it need to be in the theater to be?
And this is like a 3-hour long.
Yeah, this is at least 3 hours long. It's the story centered around Jimmy Hoffa. And Pacino plays Hoffa.
But Scorsese's taken a hit too, coming back at him for, he makes gangster movies. He makes Italian Americans look bad. But Scorsese, I mean, he doesn't have to do anything else in his career. He's spectacular. He's just one of the giants in the industry.
Yeah. No, and I'm definitely looking forward to this. They age down De Niro throughout the years.
It still scares me.
Yeah,
the technology is getting better and better, but yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see how fluid that is.
Is Beyonce going to show up and sing a song?
Oh Lord,
I hope not.
No, maybe Paul Anka. But yeah, so definitely look forward to The Irishman. I think it could be very powerful.
Joe Pesci, contender. I'm glad to have him back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Scorsese pulled Pesci out of retirement, and he's basically reunited with all of his favorite actors except for DiCaprio.
Right.
He's got De Niro, Pesci, Pacino. Actually, I don't know if he's ever worked with Pacino. Now that I think about it. And De Niro's only been in 2 movies with Pacino before, and one of them, The Godfather Part 2, they don't even have scenes together.
Yeah.
The other one is Heat, and they only have 1, maybe 2 scenes together there too. So this will be cool to see them together.
But this is a film that we've been hoping to see, and I think it's a shame that it doesn't get. If we can have Endgame in the theaters for 3 hours and, making $1 trillion or whatever, then we can certainly have Irishman in there at least for a month or whatever, and make it available. We're in a relatively big city. Like, not getting Parasite is upsetting to me, And
we have bigger issues with our theaters, though. There's only two in Savannah City,
and their quality has declined.
Absolutely.
And since Regal shut down, but anyway, so
that's what we're supposed to look forward to there.
So that's what, and there's some other ones like Queen and Slim might be a surprise.
Yes,
depending how
else? There's Queen and Slim, Just Mercy. There's a few other contenders there. That we didn't really have time to go over.
Right, and we've got future episodes and plenty of time to talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you think. Geek Homeworld on Twitter. You can find us at geekhomeworld.libsyn.com. We are now on Spotify finally. Gosh. So you can listen in your car as you drive. Great. You can listen to episodes of this. It's a good, convenient way. Google Podcast app, we're on that. And iTunes, or it's now what? Apple Podcast is what it calls. But anyway, this is Ciucevich for the Geek Homeworld podcast, and I want to thank Scott Schreiber for coming back for another episode.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your input of a lot of these films I haven't seen, and then I've got to play catch up.
Yeah, and this was maybe overkill, but I think it's a great time of year for movies. So
it is, and these are some of the real exciting movies. Every year I see that big tentpole Marvel film, and leading up to it, I'm so excited. And then there's this, after I've seen it 4 or 5 or 10 times or whatever, then there's a vacuum, it feels like, for like quality entertainment. And I'm like, okay, then I shift gears into the Oscar that feels more serious, that feels more, the kind of filmmaking that I really love. But not to say I don't enjoy all my geeky stuff, and I do. So this is an exciting time, and so we got a lot to talk about. But thank y'all, everybody, for listening to this episode and all the episodes and supporting the podcast. We appreciate it, and that's it. See you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, Savage Tech Man. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow and interact with us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes and leave a review, subscribe to us on YouTube, read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.